Hi, I'm Colin Wolf and I'm here once again to talk about embedded software. Today I want to share with you a learning experience, an experience which was beneficial to me. I learned something about the world, and so did another engineer on each occasion. Going back some years, I was working with a young engineer who was working on an embedded software project, of course. She was quite new to this area. She had some experience, but still had lots to learn. The device that she was developing software for was a sort of telecoms device of some kind, and it had two channels. It had to deal with two streams of data. We were using a simple kernel to use the multi-threaded model. She wrote some code, and in due course we sat down to review it, and one of the problems she had is it was quite large and we had limited amount of memory, but nevertheless it was time to take a look at it. I was rather surprised by the code because she needed to deal with two channels, and quite correctly she had created a task to deal with each of them, and time slicing took care of the allocation of real time to each channel, which is good. However, she had two separate copies of the code, exactly the same code. So she wrote the code to handle a particular channel, and then made another copy of it, changing its name, and used that for the second task. And of course each one had its associated data. We sat down, as I said, and reviewed the code, and I discussed with her why she had done it that way. Because to me, it was blindingly obvious that you would only need one copy of the code and two copies of the data, and you simply make sure you're pointing at the right data in the right task. That's a relatively simple programming exercise. It reduces the size of the code, and it makes it more maintainable, and everything about it is better. And she understood this and went away happy, and I'm sure she's used that technique again in the years since then. So she learnt about how to share code. I learnt about the fact that not everybody saw that as obvious. And I've been learning that kind of thing ever since. Many years later, much more recently, I came across a customer who had what looked like a different kind of problem, but ended up being rather similar. This customer was complaining that he'd run out of memory, but he needed to add some more code to his application. Could we help him at all? So we looked at his application, we fiddled with the compiler optimization and saved a bit of memory, but not really enough to do any good. We then looked at his application in more detail, made a relatively small change to it, and reduced his memory footprint by nearly 90%, which was quite spectacular. In his case, it was a very similar problem to the one I described before. He was had some kind of device which was dealing with multiple channels of telecoms data, in fact 10 channels in his case, and he had 10 copies of the code and he had 10 copies of the data, in exactly the same way as my colleague had some years ago. So you can guess what we did. We simply rearranged it so that a single copy of the data, of the code, and 10 copies of data was there. We saved him all the memory he needed, and he was a happy man, because it was very easy to do. However, interestingly, we created a new problem. Prior to us changing the structure of his code, when he was debugging, if you put a breakpoint on his code, that breakpoint would only get hit when a particular channel that he had selected was active, because the code was unique to that channel. Of course, with the shared code, the breakpoint would be hit whenever any channel used that particular piece of code, which was a bit confusing for him. However, we did have a task-aware debugger that we could sell him, which would solve his problem. So not only did we solve his problem, we made a sale as well. But he was a happy man. It was a price easily paid for the solution to his problem. So that's what shared code is all about. Nothing more complex than that. The need to write the code to be re-entrant, to make it shareable, is a technical issue. Any questions about that, drop me an email. I'll be very happy to help. But in principle, it's very straightforward, certainly if you're writing in C. So that's it for today. I'll be back soon with another embedded software topic. Any suggestions for topics to talk about are always welcome. Otherwise, see you next time. Bye for now.